Welcome to the Live the Now podcast with Dr. Suzanne Dobson.
Good morning and welcome. This is the Live the Now podcast. And my name is Dr. Suzanne Dobson. Excuse me as I kind of readjust here a little bit. I am a wife, a mother, a grandmother, a retired teacher who came back again, a juvenile court panel, a tutor, a college professor, a lot of different titles. I don't like staying put. I don't like staying in one job, which is why we've also started this podcast. I have just always wanted to help others, wanted to do more, and this is kind of my next chapter. I want to be able to help people realize from my mistakes to not live in some of the ways that I have. And in order to maybe help have a better life. So this comes out of living in the moment, and I've always struggled with this. I always had this major checklist, it was always looking to that next step. I was 15 years old and had a closet full of dishes, pots, and pans, not clothes like most 15, 16-year-olds, because of the future house that I would have. So you see, I've always struggled with this living in the moment. I always had that checklist. First I want to get married. When will I get married? How can I get married? Check. When would I have my first child? Check. And so on. And I look back now and realize that I shouldn't have done that. I was actually planning for a future that never really happened. The house and all that I had dreamed of and bought stuff for, well, that's not the house that I have. As a matter of fact, my life has not turned out at all the way I thought it was. The man I thought I'd marry, I didn't. The house full of children became an only child, which is why I adopt so many of my students. There was just so much that I had planned and I had a checkoff sheet. And yes, I do mean a checkoff sheet. And it didn't happen. So at 58, I now regret those moments that I spent searching sales papers for household wares when I really should have been enjoying time with my siblings, enjoying time with the cousins. I come from a very large family, and I should have been spending that time playing with them. I look back and I wonder if I would have been a better person if I had, making sure my notes are, I don't want to leave anything out. Would I be a better person if I had focused on what was really important and had fun with my life rather than planning for a future that never played out? Matter of fact, my career, I gave you that whole list of things the titles. The job that I dreamed of, went to college for, thought I'd spend my entire career in, was teaching second grade. I only taught that grade for 2 years. That was it. Now, I've taught everything from doctoral students down to first grade, with the exception of 5th grade. But the dream job was second graders. I didn't do it that long. Now, would I go back and change anything? No. I have enjoyed every grade level, every type of student that I have taught when I was at that age. But again, I planned, put all of my effort, everything into something that only lasted 2 years. So how many of you are doing the same thing? You know, the title now doesn't really stand for anything, to be honest with you. I just used it for me for years to remind myself to stay in this now moment. So when we started this idea of a podcast, I thought we need it to be an acronym. It needs to stand for something. And so I decided that it would stand for Need Only Wonder. As in, need only wonder what life might be. Need only wonder about this moment. What am I seeing? What am I experiencing? What am I a part of at this one moment? So then the acronym kind of happened. Need only wonder. I need only wonder what the future will be. Let's just enjoy the now, this moment, this present. And we've all had people in our lives who have, you can't tell us, living in the future, you miss the present. Please be present in your own life. Live in that moment. Don't let it slip. You're missing things. We've all had people tell us that. But how many truly listen? Not me. No. Because I was too busy thinking of, okay, what's next? What have I got to do next? What's happening later? Oh, how do I plan for this? I was planning for all kinds of scenarios that never came up. But I had a contingency plan. Oh, yes. I knew what I was going to do when it happened. But then it didn't. What about those moments that I prepared for? I missed while preparing for. In 1983, yes, long time ago, year I graduated high school, there was a new vehicle that was unveiled. It was the Chrysler minivan, and it had cup holders. Ooh, that was a new thing. We all thought it was funny. Nobody wanted a minivan. And why do we need cup holders in a car? Well, after that design came out, drive-thrus happened. Wendy's, 2-window drive-thru. Ooh, could get through there fast. Of course, that was also when a number one meal was $2.99, just for reference. So you could get your little Chrysler minivan with the cup holders and drive through and get your food, and the kids could eat on the way home. That was cutting edge, all new, and people were upset about it because they said, why would we want to eat in the car when we have a table at home? How many of our tables have paper on them instead of food or plates? Now that's what we do. We pick up food on the way to the next practice or on the way to the next thing, or really late so that we can get food on our children's stomachs before we take them a bath, give them a bath, and put them to bed. So we have to use every moment to try to get ahead, but are we getting ahead? This is the kind of stuff we're going to ponder throughout this podcast. Why exhaustion is now the new normal. Why is it that parents fall into bed at the end of the night thoroughly exhausted because everything that they have tried to accomplish, and there's still so much more. So, like I said, these are some of the things that we will talk about throughout this podcast. Now, I always think it's kind of funny going back to 1983 when I graduated high school. That was when we first started hearing about computers and technology. And technology was going to set us free. It was going to help us slow down. It was going to take care of some of these daily tasks. And, of course, that was also when Terminator was coming out and the machines are taking over. But that's another podcast. So technology came out, and then social media happened. And it was a way for us to document our lives and what we were doing and what we were seeing. And it was supposed to be in moderation. No one thought when social media truly happened that it would take off the way it has. Every morning I love it that there's a memory that shows up on my phone. But now, after this idea for the podcast came up, I started asking myself if I was living in that moment. So when I look at that memory, maybe it's of a grandson or my daughter or some of the students that I've adopted that I think of as my own, when I look at their pictures, I stop and look. And I ask myself, what do I remember about that moment? What did I smell? What did I hear? What was the conversation? I ask myself these questions to see if I was there in that moment. And, a lot of times it works. I can feel the hugs. I can feel the happiness. I can just feel that moment, and I'm there. But a lot of times it doesn't. A lot of times I just have a picture. And I know I was there because the picture is either of me or I took it. But I got nothing. It's not like a Harry Potter wand pulling out a memory to look at. There's nothing. There's just a photo of something I did or something I saw or of someone that was important to me at the moment, but I got nothing. And, that causes anxiety within us. And anxiety is something that we've had to learn to live with. It's not something that goes away. It amazes me when I work with young teachers, the anxiety that they feel on a daily life basis. And a lot of it does come from social media. When you factor in Facebook or Snapchat or any of these other platforms that everybody is so crazy about, the anxiety that comes from that platform is amazing. And you couple it with just the learning a new job, learning a new life, being a new homeowner or renting your first apartment. When you couple all of that in, I feel bad for these young people. They don't know what it's like to be able to step away, to just have space, to not be bombarded with information and pictures and everything else. We're bombarded with everything from advertisements, of future events on our phones. And granted, my phone is sitting over there. But we have doctor's appointments and meetings. My phone goes off every morning with a whole list of things I've got to do that day. So I actually roll out of bed with a list of to do that's just mine. That doesn't count what my husband needs or what the grandchildren need or my daughter needs or a friend or anything else that pops up during the day. That's just my to-do list that I've got to organize everybody else around. And so, I don't even roll out of bed unless I do it consciously and take a breath and welcome the new day. I have to stop before I pick up my phone, even though it's dinging, and breathe and go, it's a beautiful sunrise. It's going to be a great day. I'm alive. And I get hugs. Big hugs. What more is there? What more can we want? But of course, then I pick the phone up and we get started. The dinging drives me nuts. The dings of Snapchat postings. And you got to look at it, because if you don't, then the phone's going to ring because the person wants to know if you liked it, or was that the right picture to use, or was that the right caption, or how did this come across, or was this Facebook posting funny, or did it seem ugly, or and so if you don't look at it and like it or reply back or share, then you've got to answer questions about what was wrong with it, which causes more anxiety for both people. And you see, we've got a tornado going. That ding and ring and everything else is just sucking us into the technology and taking us away from the moment. I one year I had my seniors put their phones up, and the typical milk cart crate, they all put their phones in when they came in the classroom. And we were doing a social experiment similar to a story that we were reading. And so they put all their phones in the basket, and I put the phones up. They turned them off. And it was hysterical, because I would see students, kind of get a funny look for a second, grab their leg, or they'd grab their butt, or look around, and kind of lean down in their purse. And the whole time, I'm dying laughing because I have their phones. So after this went on for the first couple of class periods, I finally said, why are you people, reaching for your purses or your leg or whatever? And they go, because we can feel our phones going off, but we don't have them. They had phantom pains from vibrations of their phone. So then we took it a step further and did a screen chart, screen time. And it showed where they were spending their most time on their phone. Well, one student realized he was spending 7 hours a day playing this game. And he talked about how he'd pull up to a red light and pull his phone out and start playing the game. Red light turned green, he'd drive on. Next one, same thing. He spent 7 hours a day on average playing this game. Well, that's great. That's well and good, everything. But when he deleted the game, he actually had withdrawals. He said for about a week, every time he came to a red light, he wanted to reach for his phone, play his game. Every time he had a downtime in class, he wanted to play the game. He said he couldn't help but begin to wonder what he had missed in those average 7 hours a day on this game. He's a great guy, and he is funny, and he changed after that. His classroom interactions were so much better. His friends talked about how he was more a part of the group. Everything became more real to him, all because of deleting one game. Yeah, my daughter is a single mother of 3 boys, and she's kind of starting to date a little bit. And she had a date with a very nice young man. And they had a great conversation, a great dinner. We're going to go back to his place and watch a movie. And she noticed that when the movie started, he took out his phone. Well, she thought, okay, he's just checking text messages. But he was playing a game. He was watching the movie, answering her questions, talking to her, but he never stopped playing his game. She finally just said, thank you for a wonderful evening. This has been great, but I'm going home. And the whole reason being, he didn't put his phone up. So him being on his phone may have cost him a great relationship, but what was more important? The realization of living in the moment. This type of awareness helps to reduce so many negative thoughts. And decreasing stress is just an added benefit. We do so much better when our stress levels and our anxieties are maintained. So why keep picking up the one thing that's causing you the stress or is taking you away from those that are important? Trends come and go. We know this. Like I said, I graduated in 1983. And the clothes that I wore back then, oh, wait a minute. They are coming back. I just can't wear the same size. The music. I love the 80s music. Used to play it in class. Oh, wait a minute. That's too coming back. Because the other night, the ball game, Queen was playing. And, of course, all of us 80s babies, love the music. Students all think it's their music. So those aren't really trends. But living in the now is not a trend either. It's something we've got to do for us, for the people that we care about. Nobody goes and visits and sits on a porch anymore. Why? We're too caught up with so much to do. We've got to change. We have got to get back to truly enjoying life. And, we've become so dependent on this technology that we're not even committing our learning to long-term storage. We all get tickled about Ask Google. Well, Google's great. Or Ask Siri. We all get tickled about that. But there are some ramifications of this. It's not just grading a paper with being able to see where a student asked Google the question and got the answer. It's being able to have a conversation with that student later about that content, and they've got no clue what you're talking about. Because it was just a really quick, hey, I got a question to answer for Dr. Dobson. I wish that woman would quit giving me homework. Okay, Google, what about World War II? What was the worst battle? Write it down, turned it in, got an A, happy. But did they remember the worst battle of World War II? This is what we're now seeing. When I ask students about their phone and the photos on their phone, and they can't tell me what was truly going on at that time, it's not just an assignment problem. It's a life problem. How many of our young people are going to live their lives and still not remember things? How many of us are doing the same thing? And we know better. We know what it's like to sit on a porch and tell stories. We know what it's like to be able to go play football with the cousins and just have a blast and be able to smell the fall air and hear the laughter and see all of them at that moment. So these are the things that we're going to talk about. All right. So what do you do? Well, one, stop multitasking. Now, I'm being a hypocrite. I tell you, I got 12 windows open on my computer. I got programs running in the background, and I am working on this hard. But we got to stop multitasking. At least in certain moments of our lives, we've got to stop multitasking. There's set a timer if you do have to. And stand up and stretch. Let your brain process what it learned or what it was reading or doing, but take a moment back. So multitasking is the first thing. And then visit the past, but don't live in the past. Just visit it. Look at those photos. Ask if you remember those things. Now, there are times I get caught up living in the past. There again, hypocrite. Learn from my mistakes. That's what we're here about. I get caught up with the past was so great. I loved, again, hanging out with friends, cousins, and being 20, 30, 40. Oh, well. Anyway, I love being the ages that I have had the opportunity to be. But when I go back to the past, I begin to look at the struggles. I begin to look at the failures that I had. I forget to look at the positives and what I learned and what I did. And I have to make that mind shift because otherwise, when I live in the past, what am I missing today? I can't change the past. I have to own my failures. I have to own my mistakes. I have to acknowledge they are mine. But I can't change it. So I move on. And I accept that they have made me who I am. When we look at the past, at the glory days, as you will, I get tickled when I hear people sitting around telling stories. I was somewhere at a conference. I was listening to this individual talk about his life. He was talking about how he was competing on the national level in one sport while he was in college competing on a collegiate sport level. That was different. Again, okay? National sport competition, one sport. Collegiate sport competition, different sport. Maintained a 4.0 and was, of course, inducted into the local Hall of Fame and just all these things he accomplished. And I'm listening to that and I'm thinking, well, that's great. But how can the present compete with that kind of past? The individual was not married, had no children, had never been married, and was so caught up with telling stories from college back that he looked to be around 60, 70 years old. I couldn't help but wonder what had happened since he was 25. What about all those years? It was hard to compete with the past, especially when we build it up in our heads and compare it to our future or our now. I mean, we got bills to pay, big bills. We got bills to pay. We're running kids. We're washing clothes. We're cooking dinner. There's no national competitions, The roar of that crowd is gone. But if you lived in that time and you stay in that time, what have you lost? Could he have lost a wife and family? that could have made his life happier, because he's not a happy individual. I can tell that. I could tell from listening to him. And I felt sorry because of all the great stories he had from the age of 25 back. What since then? And how many people would have given everything to have lived from 25 to 70 that didn't get an opportunity to? Those are some things that I ponder. So, sometimes the mind is a scary place, right? So what do? We stop thinking about our performance, or we stop overthinking everything. We avoid worrying about the future. There's a plan. It'll work out. Leave it alone. Prepare for it, but don't waste time thinking all these scenarios and the what ifs and everything else. Focus on your breath. If you will stop and take a good deep breath, you'll be amazed how things line up and how your body feels better. Oh, wait, that's adding extra oxygen to your body. Approve your ability to accept. Accept what's bothering you. Accept your life. Accept the past. Now, if you're not happy with your life, accept the steps to change it. Do the research. Get it ready. But most importantly, enhance your engagement. Feel the breeze. Hear the laughter. Breathe. So for homework, people, we're all about the homework. So for homework, here's what we're going to do. 1, we're going to breathe. 2, we're going to actually say, because I promise you the stars love it when you talk to them. We're actually going to say, okay, I accept my failures. I did it. How do I learn from them and not do that again? So that's your homework. Guys, thank you for coming to visit with me. I hope that you have a fantastic week filled with hugs. Bye, y'all.